Cool. Okay, let's jump over to talk about the rooftop scene. So let's play it once more. So this was probably the most fun to shoot. That's because, like, if you look at it right now, it's at night, right? But we were planning to shoot it in the daytime.
I wanted to get it at twilight, so we had like a pink, blue sky there.
But if you see, this is what happened. So it just immediately started pouring rain.
Yeah, that's me going there to help hold Video Village together.
The wind actually became really, really heavy. It started to lift the tent off. That's why everyone's grabbing the tent. So. And we switched to iPhone photos here, right? Because the camera that was shooting is not waterproof. So, but you can see the clouds there, which look amazing. Actually, they're kind of cool looking.
But not for what we're doing.
No, of course not. But they're cool.
Yeah, they're cool.
The rain clouds are great, right?
Yeah.
There's the DOP grabbing lighting gear to help the gaffer come inside. Cool. So, the big challenge about this was the rain, and it turned nighttime. But I think it really helped highlight your art direction.
Yeah, I mean, so for this, every single situation, and this is probably something we can go in deeper in the future, but in pre-production, every situation, I made sure like there were interesting characters that drove the situation, and I made sure they all had a color palette that made them stand out as their own vignette. So for this, like the color palette, of course, was mainly pink and blue, and I think nighttime really pulled it out. I'm a little sad though. I really wanted this shot to be twilight so that you can have more depth, so that you can get clouds in the back, some pink, and like a blue, like dark blue, navy blue sky in the top. That's what I was hoping for, but it still came out really nice. Well, especially with the neon lights on their face.
Yeah, I think actually the focus point of it becomes the neon lights at this point. Right?
Yeah,
it actually makes it stick out more.
I do want that depth. I was hoping to get that depth. You know,
I understand that as your like creative filmmaker.
It's also like
interness.
One thing, like so I love this scene. Like, don't get me wrong, I really love this scene. I think it turned out amazing. But if we just had more depth with that sky. Yeah. It would have just made the world feel bigger. Sure. It would have made a situation feel bigger, right? Sure, rather than being about like in a corner kind of like this. But it still is a very good piece. You can actually notice, you don't see it on this table, but if you back up to one of the shots, you'll notice like...
right here?
No, go back to where you were. But just before you go, like if you see that chair on the bottom left, the blue one.
Sorry, one sec. There we go.
It actually still has water droplets on it, if you notice.
Yeah, there's water on it. Yeah,
it was still kind of raining, drizzling a little bit while we were shooting it.
That's actually right. It was shooting, but it was so light that like you couldn't see. Also, like whenever you go to grade it, the blacks, deepen so.
Yeah, and like that's the only space you can really see that. Oh, in fact, it wasn't. Yeah. It was still raining a little bit. So that was cool. That was a cool, fun little shoot.
One of the things I just want to, you could talk a bit about the talents here and how they actually bring the scene together. Because I actually think that these talents were a very good choice. Like the casting for these guys was actually excellent because it's a group, right? Like I think that's what's different than all the other scenes. This is a group of friends that have to work well together.
Yeah.
And this from what I saw on set and like interacting with them, like. When that rain hit, right, and we're stuck there for 2 hours inside that room with them. Yeah. Like you kind of saw their personalities, right, and it's very similar to what they were on camera.
So when I
they're
made
natural is what I'm saying.
Yeah, when I decided on what characters are going into which scenes, right, I made like a wish list of things. I really wanted this group to be diverse because I didn't want it to be just 3 kids on a phone, like on phone. So I wanted them to feel unique and have their own kind of personality. I'm very happy with her because I wrote down as a wish list, like I really want this one girl to be half African, half Thai. Because I thought that was so interesting. That I thought that was going to bring so much to it. And then not thinking that I would actually get that, but I did. And she
yeah.
turned out great, right?
Yeah.
And she immediately, when you see it for the first time, it has a personality because of her, and also because of our guy in the middle here, who's half Texan, half American, right? Which is a little bit of
half Thai, half
Texan.
Yeah.
Half Thai, half Texan. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then but he was also very energetic. When
It's important because I'm from Texas.
Yeah, that one state.
No, but that's why I don't know. Maybe that's why I like him so much.
Yeah, no, but he's cool. He's a ball of energy. He's like just power.
That's true.
Yeah, and
always happy, like always. Yeah.
Yeah, he's exactly like this. So I think they all kind of have good chemistry. They there's this concept like in acting where it's you're sending the energy to the next person, right? You're delivering the acting to the other actor so they can react and continue that loop. And I think it works really well because they all have good energy and they're sending it across and receiving it, and so it worked. And it made this shot. We shot this really quick. We shot this in like 30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, max.
Because
of the rain.
Yeah, because of the rain.
The amount of overtime that we could afford.
Yeah, and also what was great was we had like one rehearsal before it rained. So they already knew their blocking and what they're supposed to do. So marvelous. Like when we cast just on the top of the
Did you cast them together? Did they audition together?
So
as a group?
No, they didn't get to audition together as a group, but what we did was we didn't have them audition in a vacuum, right? We had some other people, like our own staff and stuff, just act with them.
Yeah.
And then what we could see from that was, are they making the situation better? Are they
react with people?
Yeah, not just their reaction with because just by the way, our guys are not professional actors. So if they're able to be with guys that aren't actors and lift up the situation, make it fun, even for them, then that means it should work, right? And then during fitting, that's when they got to meet each other and then confirmed chemistry was good.
And did you do any rehearsals with them at the fitting?
No, we didn't do any rehearsals at the fitting just because it was chaotic. We had... we had so many clothes to try on. Before we got to these outfits, each of these kids probably tried on like 20 other outfits.
To arrive at this combination.
At this combination. We had our first set, didn't work, went back to the drawing board, figure out new wardrobe, and then tried it again, right? I think it was 3 times before we got it right. And it was important for them because they need to feel unique. They need to feel energetic. They need to feel...
And the client has to approve it, too.
And the client has to approve it.
That's a whole other...
Yeah.
So did we send this to the client multiple times for them to approve?
So the first round, I didn't like at all. So I was like, no, let's redo it. Second round,
that didn't make it to the client?
The first round didn't. But then the second round, I still wasn't happy, but we need to move things forward, right? And so, not happy yet, but let's see what the client's feedback is so that we can combine those feedbacks for the final one. And then the final one, we actually kind of knew where we're going. Yeah. We had a very clear idea. And then we actually did fitting on that same day that we were shooting this shot. So while we were setting up the bus scene, we had them do the fitting. The clients were there to approve it.
Because we shot the bus scene
before
this.
Yeah. And then got a lock so good. We brought them in and it was fantastic. It worked really well. Yeah.
Yeah, it really did. It really did. A couple other things. Cut this out. Sorry. Okay. A couple other things I want to point out in this shot are technical, more on the post-production side, that I think a lot of people will enjoy seeing. So, if you watch before this, right, this frame right here, go forward, there we go. There's no light on their faces, right? So if you just keep tabbing through, you'll see that the light pops up on their faces, and then the finger hearts settle on the air, right? And this is all CG, right?
Yeah.
So those settle in the air, and then this is volumetric lighting on their faces, right? Volume, is that the term? So it's basically it's lighting done in post, CG, VFX. I'm really not completely familiar with the term, but I'm assuming that it means that it's reacting to them as a volume in 3D space.
Yeah.
And so that plus those lights are all CG, right? So we approved this design first, the outline of like the hand with the finger hearts, right?
Yeah.
And then once the client agreed on the shape, then we put it into 3D where they like basically kind of like extruded it out, right?
So what we did is clients already knew that they wanted the mini heart because Hotstar is all about local content, Korean content.
This is very Korean.
Yeah, so the mini heart is very Korean, and so they knew that. So once we narrowed down the design of the mini heart and the colors, what we did is we took that design and then because we had our blocking kind of, we did our recce, and so we know where the shot's going to be and stuff like that. What we could do was we could just take the shot, take the symbols and kind of place it in where it could be. And then because we shot this before the final day of shooting, on the final day, we took the footage, like the editor was on set too, by the way. So the editor shows like a take that he thought was great. He gave us just the play blast of that take. And then our Lena, our general graphics person, was able to take the AI files we created as a mock-up and do some test animations so that we can lock the movement, lock positioning and stuff like that with the clients, and they can say yes or no to it. And then with that all locked in, it was really easy for the CG team to kind of like recreate it in 3D and have it move and timing.
Perfect the movement and the timing.
Yeah. I mean, there were still slight adjustments, but it got him like 70% there. Yeah, 70-80% there, and then the rest was easy. As for volumetric lighting, that was really cool. They first we had to settle on like, and this is a good tip for anybody who's doing CG or animation and they're mixing it with live action, right? There's little things you need to figure out, like it's coming out from the phone, but you need to ask yourself that question: how does it come out from the phone? Does it just fly out or does it turn? And we purposely made it kind of turn so that it helps.
You can see the turn here. So.
Yeah, so we.
Otherwise, it's quite boring, right? Just straight up.
That too, and then it looks like when it doesn't turn, it looks like it's ballooning out. It's just like puffing up to its size, right?
So this way, it's actually like coming out of that area. Of the phone.
And it helps hide the balloon, so it feels like it's enlarging in a more dynamic and fast way.
Yeah, because if you had a real finger heart in real life coming out of your phone.
But see, that's a trick, right? How to make it look real enough that you don't feel like it's in that uncanny valley, and movement helps with that. And if you notice, like even the hearts kind of move an extra time. So
you're right. So it does this whole thing. So those are still spinning. So it goes up, it settles, and then the settles, and the hearts continue. Yeah. Oh, that's kind of cool.
So it draws more attention.
Was that your idea or the CG team? VFS, yours, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome.
No, but we took inspiration from Mario, actually. We took inspiration from, when the coins kind of pop up and...
Mario.
Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
Mario Brothers.
That's the Thai.
That's a Thai in me.
Try pronunciation.
But yeah, so we took that, even the sound design and stuff, we kind of took inspiration from that. And the sound design is really cool. Like you can hear the little bit of like neon coming from it.
Sure.
You can hear like the metallic, and stuff like that in it. So really, really great. Volumetric lighting, they mapped out the faces to make sure that like it's shining at the proper distance that it fades off correctly. So cool. You see it a lot in the girl on the right on her shirt and the guy's neck.
For sure. So that also I just want to point out as well, something a lot of people don't ever see and don't realize that you're doing is a lot of cleanup. Excuse me. For one example, right? I'm trying to get it. So if you notice here, this building at the top right, you see Amari logo. That's on that building in the back, right here. Yeah. So we had to shoot with that, and then we actually took that out in post, right? And put those 3 lines there.
So take a guess how we did that.
How you did it?
Yeah. How we got to that 3 lines.
It has some. I don't know. You tell me.
So there was a discussion between me and Chris, the creative director from Disney, and they're like, "Oh, let's remove it." And then I told Chris, like, I still want to keep color. I still want it to feel.
It provides depth.
Yeah, and it doesn't make it look so just like blackout, right? Dark. So we're like, okay, let's do something. Told the post house. And that actually originally was, so they removed the whole sign and they found a different sign for a bar that was orange, pasted it in, and then we went through it and was like, well, you know, it's a little bit too obvious. So they erased it out, left just a line, and then just tripled the lines and put it on.
Extended it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think it makes the building look interesting.
Yeah, it does, for sure.
Yeah, and it gives a little pop of color, so it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just something I wanted to highlight, like that a lot of commercials, that it's like the last finishing part, right? Like in Flame or Smoke, that you're doing things like that. So
you actually get the Novotel as well on the left-hand side. And not this shot, but on the close-up shot, if I remember correctly. If you go back a shot or two, back even more, sorry, the first one with them. Oh, no, you don't. They completely removed it. So it's on that final shot.
Of course we removed it.
In the final shot, you see Novotel, and they actually removed.
So let me just, for the record, as an executive producer, I would never let that happen.
Yeah. So they removed that too. So I think it's nice and clean. On the left was supposed to be a sign for the Novotel. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. Yeah.
There's one other scene. No, one or two more, guys. We have Star Wars.
We still have Star Wars and Marvel.
And Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange.
So let's.
But before you skip the topic of like rotoscoping, if you look at the final shot, actually, when it's like the city skyline. No, the final, like before the CTA, way in the back.
Or tell me which way to go.
Just go to your right. Go more.
Oh, you're talking about
this. Like no logos appear, right? We removed every single building logo. Even like if you look right underneath like that plus symbol in the middle, there's like a restaurant name. We actually removed that too. Yeah. So that we're sure that there's nothing in there. It's all clean. And that's really cool actually what they did with that shot. They actually made a 3D layout of the buildings again so that they can layer the plus symbols coming up in the back. It was just pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's jump over real quick to Star Wars.
Yeah.
So
love this scene.
Yeah, you should. You're a Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm a Star Wars
fan. So this here is a time-lapse shot, excuse me, of Bangkok, and that's the Mahana Khan Tower in the background.
Yeah.
I'm just going to play it real quick. Okay.
Probably the shortest sequence in the movie.
It is. Yeah.
It is.
Sure.
But for me, it's one of those powerful moments.
So this is cool, right? This is probably like
the best,
maybe the most iconic thing in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, in the commercial.
Yeah.
So
this and the Doctor Strange portal, I think, are the two coolest.
Yeah, but Star Wars is way more iconic than Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Like, so the fact that you have this lightsaber popping up out of the skyline is super cool, right? Anything you want to say or talk about on this?
So, like, this, I think for me, what's really cool about this shot is right from the storyboard, what I did is I made the storyboard and I broke down the storyboard into visually what you're seeing, what the sound effects are and what the VFX are. And I think what works really well for this scene, apparently, it's the halfway point of the film, and what we do is we kind of make it like a fake out, right? Like you go from the last scene where the sound kind of dies out and you come into here, it's almost perfect for like a CTA.
Yeah, so it's dead, right?
Yeah, like you can just imagine like their logo fading in, right?
Yeah.
But instead
the sound effect of the lightsaber
and it coming up at that time. It just it makes the film have a second life, and it changes the pacing up to make the film still interesting. 60 seconds is a short time, but how do you keep someone interested for 60 seconds is always interesting.
And so obviously like this here is a shot on screen. We jump to this. This is all green screen in the back, right?
Yeah. So this is actually the same house as the flower shot in the beginning.
So to save time, we made this work in another room.
Yeah. So luckily they had a room in the back that had the windows in the back kind of were similar to, the door in that room was similar to what you would find in a condo. So what we did is we green screened it out, and then we changed the curtains to be deep, dark curtains, like blackout curtains like that, so that it felt more like a condo. And what the post team did is they put the Star Wars shot in. They actually gave it a little glare as if it's coming through a window. And if you notice, they added a balcony in the back there too.
Banister and glass wall.
Yeah.
Right.
So that made it feel even more real. But it's actually a house on the first floor.
And so the cool thing on this is that it transitions from the lightsaber to her reaction, right?
Yeah.
Which is actually a key moment, right? If you're shooting this and you just watch it and then she doesn't do anything, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you got to get a reaction out of her.
Yeah. So what, for me, again, like coming back to characters, I purposely made sure every character was interesting and had a story, right? So for this couple, for me, the backstory was he's like Thai guy and this is like a hot girl. Like, he's like a super fan for Star Wars, and then he finally found the girl who's
Super fan also.
Yeah, also a super fan, and is also kind of hot, right? And then for him, he has that, if you notice, like the acting's very interesting because he has that first moment where he's looking at her tender in love, and then it's broken with her kind of like, hey, look at this, right? And it calls attention to what they're watching.
And it's that cool, much cooler, right, for that guy, right? Because like, that's the dream, right? Is to like find someone you really like, you're attracted to, and also loves
the same things
your
you
video
do.
games, Star Wars, that whole thing, right?
Yeah. So like I think like within 1 to 2 shots, you can tell a whole story of a person. So in that one single shot, you could tell he's a Star Wars fan, he found the girl of his dreams, and she's as into it as he is, right?
Yeah.
And then we cut to the next thing to just as a validation of what they're watching, which is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Reaction.
Yeah, and then this reaction shot, we didn't plan for it, but decided to put it in just because it's already very short compared to all the others. So having this extra reaction shot kind of like it's that final send-off for this vignette. And it works quite well. Like their smile and laughter is just beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
This is probably one shot worth pointing out is set design really works here a lot too. Like when you look at it, you understand how much they're Star Wars fans based on the set design, right? You can see
you
like
got like the Han
Han Solo. You have like the head down there of a stormtrooper. You have a AT-AT on the left. More posters on the right, and the more posters on the left. If you look at the shot before, you see like Grogu underneath the light stand. You see more posters around them and stuff. Like set design helps tell that story.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
And
then you have Marvel,
Doctor Strange.
Yes.
So
that would be the beach before Star Wars. There we go.
Here we go. Okay. So this was really cool because of the special effects fan.
You like that fan a lot.
Love it. So the cool thing about special effects fan.
Thank you for allowing the budget for it, by the way.
I would have paid for that myself. So let me just jump over and find this. So this was the very last scene that we did. One thing, first off, I just want to say is really cool about this, right, is the set.
Yeah.
Because this, like, obviously the focus is on him, so I don't think a lot of people realize this, but, like, this has all been set up and designed for the actual shot. And then my second favorite thing about this was the special effects fan, right?
Yeah.
I love special effects fans. They're super fun. And here's just a video of it because I want to show it off. So it's got a gas motor, right? So it's, like, pretty strong. And you can see you and the AD sitting there, and he's standing in for the actor, right? Like how he's supposed to sit up, right? But you can see
it backs him up a little bit.
And yeah, that's actually like a real reaction when he stands up because it's actually quite strong.
Yeah.
I think there's some more videos of it.
Yeah. And everybody, if you dig my cool hat, let me know in the comments below. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but just saying.
Maybe. I don't know. All right, let's talk about it, though. Let's break it down. So the purpose of this scene.
So this scene is, again, like because it's Disney Plus, we need to talk about all their brands and franchises. And one of their brands underneath Disney Plus is Marvel. Yeah.
Yep.
And at the time, like Doctor Strange, when we were shooting, Doctor Strange was in the theaters, but we knew that when we're about to air, it's about to be on Disney Plus Hotstars. So they wanted to include it because it's a well-known brand. A lot of people love it. So this whole sequence is supposed to be this guy who's a Marvels fan, clearly a Doctor Strange fan.
Yeah. What's
really cool about him is I purposely, when we were going through characters and creating characters, I was like, this guy, like, to fill in the demographic of like the 40s to 50 somethings.
Yeah.
I was thinking, okay, let's make it a guy, 40 to 50 something. Because it's Doctor Strange, I was like, let's make him like a cool surfer dude version of Doctor Strange who's Thai, right?
Yeah.
And then that's cast. We actually got the guy in casting. He looks like this already, right? And then if you notice, like we added the gray stripes on the side of his hair, so it matches Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
And
the crimson towel.
Yeah, I purposely added the crimson towel so it looks like Doctor Strange's cape.
Was that planned from the beginning?
That was planned from the beginning. All of that was planned out. We were looking at like getting a blue suit for him too.
Yeah.
But the blues that we found were the wrong kind of blues. It was too bright, so it looked more like Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
So we settled with black, which I think worked out better, right?
It did. It worked out great.
It worked out great. And back to what you were saying.
It's kind of a throwback to Doctor Strange.
Yeah. So he's like hats off to Doctor Strange, of course. He's like a Doctor Strange fan watching Doctor Strange. And as you said, like all of this is added in, all the set design. So what we did is we looked at several locations for the beach. But because a beach is kind of different from like the house or anything like that, right? It doesn't dictate too much how we set it up because beaches are usually sand and then trees in the back. So we took the KV we did originally for a different beach and we just adjusted positioning and reapplied it. And we got all of this. And I made a color palette for this to be oranges and reds with hints of like blues, teals, and greens just to like accentuate the just to cut the yellows that we have there.
Yeah, so you can see a bit more of the props and the colors and everything.
Yeah.
There.
So that was, and if you can notice, like actually this is on the left side.
Yeah. And
on our actual shot, it's on the right, which is simply because we flipped it.
Yeah, that's right.
Post.
We did flip that shot in post.
Yeah.
And that was because of how it's cut. Right?
Yeah.
So there's this, and then so that he's looking from
left to right.
Yeah, he's looking to right of screen.
Yeah.
And the portal's to the right as well, right?
Yeah. So
that it just mentally feels
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also the orange on him, I think.
Yeah. So what we did is, I think you haven't played this whole scene in its entirety yet. So we can go through it.
Here we go.
Yeah.
All right. There we go. So now we can break the scene down.
Yeah, now we have context for what we're doing.
Sorry about that. We were talking about it for like 5 minutes. With that.
No, it's a cool scene. It's easy to get excited about this scene. So what the viewers don't see is actually like this shot, and when he stands up is the same shot, right? We had the camera on a dolly. We had the wind machine already turned on, and then once it's cued for him to see it, the wind machine turns at the same time towards him, and that's what kind of makes his cape fly off. And then we also had maxi lights. Maxi Brutes, yeah.
You can see that in this shot here I just had. So, and that's what was giving him the orange glow. You can see there's this piece of CTO, this orange gel that it was punching through.
Yeah. So that helped give that orange light. So it does feel like it just opened up, and it it's brightening him up. That's what's giving the wind.
So you can see there the AD standing in for him, right? So
yeah,
you have the AD there, camera's pushing in this way, and then the Maxi Brute right there.
And the wind machine was so strong. Some takes it actually blew the some of the umbrellas away off the ground and into the back.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. That's why I love special effects fans.
Yeah, like So we ended up turning it on, like for the takes that we're using, only 60% of its full strength. Like at 100%, the guy can't stand. He literally will fly off the ground.
Of course, that's awesome. So let me just get there. So one thing that like I think everybody wants to talk about is this part.
This, just the face, right? Or this, or the portal.
Yeah, the portal.
Okay, the portal, the cool part of it.
This is not stock. This was custom created for this spot.
So two things. So one thing is pre-production we did good job at pre-production.
Yes,
like this, just so you know, this shot, the shot of the mountains are stock. Right. And we had to, just because of our tight timeline, we actually had to predetermine what stock footages we used before we shot.
Right.
So we actually, a week or two before we shot, we had to have the clients choose what shots they're going to use for both the Star Wars lightsaber scene, this, and the end scene.
Yep.
And then
we gave that to the post-production house.
Yeah, and what they did is they actually did mapping. So they took the information from the shot and they spent probably a few days kind of mapping out the position of everything so that when they place the portal in, they're placing it into actual 3D space.
Yep.
So the portal, and the way they do that is they kind of use all the geometric lines and stuff, and they create like a grid for it basically.
Right.
And then they can place the portal in. And the portal is custom made. It's not something
it's not an asset we were able to get or anything.
Yeah,
like
well,
that.
we got an asset from Disney, from Marvel, which was a ready-made portal on an alpha channel.
Yeah.
But what happened was, you can't use it on this because you can't turn it.
Yeah, the perspective is not correct.
Yeah, but it was still good enough information. And this is, again, like, if something can't be used, doesn't mean it's not worth anything. It's still worth studying. Like the team took the time to study how the Marvel team actually made it work. Like how the sparks fly, how the glow works in its environment. And they found that there's actually smoke that comes in the middle of the portal. So they added that in too, if you notice.
Yeah.
And that helped make it much more realistic. And the shot that we had of this is like bright sky during the day. So they did volumetric lighting so that you have lighting on the reflections in the water.
Yep.
If you notice.
Yeah, just below there.
Yeah, and then it also hits the mountains. And we kept the boats, even the ones in the background, so that you have a sense of scale.
Yep.
Like this is how big it is compared to these boats. Mountains are great for a sense of scale, but when something large is next to something large, you can't tell how large it is. If something small is next to something large, then you can tell it quite well. And then we added the clouds in the back. We dimmed it all down, added the clouds in the back, and we actually added like lightning in the clouds.
Yep,
so that it's
right here.
Just so much more menacing.
Yeah.
And then what was interesting is we didn't have the portal in color grading. So we had to grade it without the portal halfway.
So just real quick, I just want to mention like how long it was to create this thing, right? So I think it was like a 2-week process.
Yeah, roughly 2.5 weeks, something like that to create it.
So I remember it took like a week to a week and a half just to get a 3D
a first preview.
But this was not a render, right?
Yeah.
So like it was a grayscale render, right? So there's no colors, there's no reds, orange lights, there's no, none of this star negative space in the middle, no smoke even, right?
Yeah.
It was just literally how the grayscale, how the 3D object, how it was generating the sparks and everything, right?
Yeah.
And I remember that the VFX supervisor that was on set was showing it to us while we're shooting in between a take of the shark at the floating market, right?
Yeah.
And he's showing it to us, and we're like, oh, that's so cool. Like, wow, like this looks just like the portal. And he's like, no, I'm not happy with this. It's not behaving correctly. And I'm like, well, so I have, he's like that detailed, right?
Yeah. Very detail oriented. Ali is the head of CG.
Monster. Yeah.
He's a monster. And so here we actually had just for viewers' reference, when they did the first test shot, they did just a still photo preview for us too. That was like fully with the stars inside and everything.
So as in a full render, right?
A full render.
So this is like the day before.
No, this is They did one full render for us to do
of one frame.
Of one frame to
right,
do
so
like
it's a still image, so that it looked like this.
Yeah,
right.
And they did it specifically just so that the clients can be like, oh, do minor adjustments.
Yeah,
and then that still image that looks like this, just the first one, that was
frame.
rendered out of a single Mac iMac. Took them 3 hours to render it out.
And the fun part, right, about this whole thing was that still image, right, that was rendered took that long, right? And everybody had to approve it, because I think this was the day before
something like that,
export, right? And so we all approved it. Fortunately, and the client was very, very understanding about this.
Yeah.
Like, they understood that they had to approve it, and we were very careful to make sure we showed them all the bits and pieces, and the milestones and timeline to get to this place, right? So, so it was very, very directed. And then when we showed this to them the day before, everyone was okay with it, and then they literally rendered it, and the first time that we ever saw it was like in the final export.
Yeah.
And there was no going back. Like, that was it.
Well, what you don't know is
I actually got COVID that week. So I wasn't even able to go to the post house for this, but I was watching my WhatsApp and my emails and everything constantly.
So two things happened that was kind of interesting that day. One was the first render they rendered out from some sort of miscommunication within like the CG team didn't actually have the stars. It was just an empty portal that you can see into the back.
I did see that.
Right? And that was in the morning, and we're like, oh no.
Yeah.
But Ali, through like sheer trickery, he understood, like, okay, it's fine. I'm going to render out just the portal, like the inside of the portal, and then I can fit it in. Mm-hmm. Right? He knew how to do it, so he just kind of rendered out the portal alone. That took less time, and then what he didn't tell me was like, okay, here's the portal, and I was like, why does it say V5? And he's like, oh, well, I rendered it out 5 times to do a test, different ways. Yeah. And so if you notice, like, there's actually parallax in there where we see like the stars moving a little bit. So he did 4 or 5 other tests where it's moving at different speeds and different rates. And this kind of was the best one out of them all. And he sent only the best one to me. And I'm like, can I see the rest? He showed me, and it's like, yeah, you sent the best one the first time, and only that.
It's so one thing to note, right, is, and I don't know if this is during that stage or not, but like how this is created, right? Whenever you're doing CG like this, my understanding is that this is a generator, right? Like, you basically input like coordinates, or you input thresholds, right? And limits and that sort of thing into the program that creates this, and then it generates it. Right. Yeah. And then if you want it to change and it's not behaving, then you have to change those coordinates, those thresholds, those parameters, right? Yeah. And then there's parameters, and then it will generate it in a different way, right? And so, like, the whole thing that we all, and this is the one thing, like, whenever we do any kind of a commercial that has any kind of liquids, right? It's like the whole issue of, like, it's not just the amount of time, like maybe it takes 1 day to render out the liquid sequence, but you have to render it out, look at it, change it, adjust it, render it out again, and then you have to do this over and over and over. So, like, that was the really, like, scary part about it that I was talking about a moment ago, right? It's like, if it doesn't behave the way you want, like, we didn't have any time to go back and change those parameters.
Yeah. So for this shot, like, the parameters were basically the bits of flying sparks.
The sparks,
yeah. And then the water in the bottom, as you can see, like, it's interacting, the reflections,
which looks super cool.
Because they had to actually make water.
Because it can't reflect off of the stock video.
Yeah, so they had to make like water that goes on top of it so that it can reflect properly. Right. So when you're talking about the whole rendering out, for anybody who's learning this, right? If
your client says, like, you can just do it real quick.
Yeah, no, you can't.
not to make it photoreal.
Even with a render farm, when we actually rendered out the final version, we had a whole render farm with like a whole render farm. I don't know how many blades we had, but it still took 6 hours or something like that to render out.
It was and we were cutting it close, man.
Yeah, the shark was actually the one that's hardest to render.
That's right.
Yeah, if you just go forward a little bit while we're talking about it quickly is. So they had to render this shark, as you can see. We did tests, we did all that, But
this is the liquid, like I was talking about.
yeah,
right?
they had to render out how that liquid interacts with that fin and the tail that's moving in the background.
Yeah.
Especially this shot, they had to basically kind of almost recreate the water on top
and
there.
time it with the bump too.
Yeah. So,
Right.
and then you see how the water is going on the fin.
And one thing I wanted to point out that like I actually suggested on set is they were doing this backwards, right? So like the first initial bump was left up like that, like if the shark's coming.
Yeah.
When we were shooting it, I noticed in the monitor, because I was sitting there, like even though I'm the EP on the set, like I'm sitting there like being that extra layer.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm also a director and was a DOP back in the day, so like I have a bit of experience doing it too. So that's one advantage that I do have, which is something I felt that helped with us on this, right? Is that like if you had bumped it up this side first, it wouldn't make sense for the shark to hit it and the right side bump up, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that was the thing that like we had to make sure. So like when you're shooting stuff like this, like not only is it like just getting the shot, the acting and everything, but it's also making sure having the VFX supervisor, the DOP, everyone paying attention to make sure that you're doing this correctly so that CG is going to interact with it in the correct way later.
Yeah. Also, like another thing to add on top of that is it's not just the side that they're hitting, right? If you notice, like the shark is actually coming out of water. So if you look at the shot before, you'll notice the shark is actually there and it's going slightly into the water. If you notice, like the fin's going down slowly, right?
Yeah, so it like goes down
so
and up, right?
yeah, it goes down and up again, and it comes up on this shot, the next shot. And then the way we made it is it looks like maybe the tip of the fin or the back of the shark hits the boat and then it comes out.
Yeah.
And the way where the shark hits the boat makes a difference, because if the shark was already on top of water and hit the boat, it wouldn't lift up. It would go to the side. Yeah. So we had to like plan all that out.
Yeah.
In advance. Like that's where when you're doing recce's and you're doing like previs and
that's why it's so important for the VFX supervisor or CG supervisor, right, to be there on set.
Not just on set. I had
prep on
like
set
3 or 4 meetings like that were hours long about all of the shots to go over it, and he's the one who actually helped us figure out the movement, how it should go, how it should hit and stuff
you
like that.
Someone who's experienced like that is going to help a lot.
Yeah, but that's the fun of the job, right? Like we do this so that we get to do cool stuff, but we also get to collaborate with cool, interesting people. So back to the Doctor Strange.
Yeah. I mean, I think we
covered pretty much everything.
Is that every single scene in the?
Yeah, that's pretty much every single scene.
Do we have any others that we didn't?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So that is literally. Oh, the one thing we didn't talk about is this sequence, the
montage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all these, I don't know, man. I was actually sick at home at the time, so you can probably talk a bit about this. But this is like the ties everything together.
Yeah. So basically, like, it's saying like, okay, these shows.
Sorry, I'll play it so we have some context.
There you go.
So here we go. So it's a plus sequence, right?
Yeah.
This is Disney Plus.
So we call this the montage.
Yeah.
Because it's a montage, basically.
Okay.
What's cool is this shot before, what we actually had to do in order to get the top of the hearts in frame and have enough time that we can register it before we go into the montage, is the back end of this acting, we actually had to speed up so that we had enough time for the reactions to hit the marks exactly before this plus symbols came in.
Right.
And these plus symbols were done in 3D and then put into flame so that they can animate it. Yep. But we actually did mock-ups of everything when we were doing our offline. Mm-hmm. So like offline is like 80% everything, right? Like pacing, everything was already determined in offline, and then online is basically just reapplying it in a better way, right? So these symbols that you see, the plus symbols, are actually done in 3D, and you can see it reflects the scene that's happening inside. So you can see like how Baymax is layered on itself, and then next scene and next scene. We did spend a lot of time working on like getting the title size right, finding shots. this is the one part where I'm like, I wish I had a bigger clip pool to choose from, because I think there could be very interesting scenes. But because of a lot of these shows are either currently on or not aired yet, there's kind of that limitation of can't show that. Right. But yeah, it was pretty cool. And then this we had to recreate. We had to create everything. So I probably spent a good 3 or 4 hours with Peter working on this. So he made it first. He took a day or so to make it. Peter Kim was the flame artist.
Okay.
And then
so he created this in Flame.
He created all this in Flame. But then we had to sit down for like 4 hours probably working on, the movement of it. Because
there was a big thing right here. I remember. So this, when you have this and then the tilt up.
Yeah.
Right. That was a big.
We had to do sky extension a little bit and then, go and then have that transition to
get this moving right here.
So it feels smooth. Right. Yeah. But if you notice one thing, like the placement of the plus symbols aren't just. They're kind of random, but they're not, right? So we made 3 layers of them. It looks like more because of the size, but we actually made 3 layers of them. And then one thing...
It's supposed to be all random speeds, right?
Yeah, but then one thing we also did to help is we finessed a lot on that trail, like how thin is it? The trail can't start from the beginning. If not, it looks like crosses flying up in the sky, right? So it has to only start when it's starting to speed up. Then the trails start.
So these trails that you're seeing right here, right?
Yeah. And that's back to animation where there is a logic to the movement. It's not just random. The other thing that we did is if you notice this middle one that's the biggest, we use that as motivation for the camera. Mm-hmm. So the camera just doesn't randomly go up. It's going up because this guy's up.
It follows that guy.
Yeah, about to get out of frame. And we had to finesse a lot with getting the timing for that to feel good, right? And that's something where it just comes with like testing and testing and testing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was fun, man. It was fun. I enjoyed every moment of it.
Well, that is, I think that's the production side of it.
Yeah.
Post, I don't know what else there's to talk about other than like the offline cut and then the online part of it. But I mean, we pretty much covered it. Yeah. Cool. Anything else you want to mention or?
Well, like for me, it's the characters. Like when I was talking to Eric while you were out of the room, but like you look at, and this is for every story that you're creating, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, the fantastical moments when like the flowers come out, when the portal comes, Star Wars and all that. Those moments are the payoff, right? But the thing that gets you to the moments are the characters. Like this,
always, man.
Yeah, so like this girl, as soon as when we started with her, the whole purpose was she has to grab your attention. We have to know who she is within the first shot. So like this first shot, she's a rocker girl. She's like, she's
a bit more edgy.
Yeah, and like, but she's still watching Encanto, and that tells a lot about her personality in 2 shots. And then it keeps your interest in what's going to happen next. And that's throughout the whole story. Every character leads you to the next thing.
Sure. And
never forget the characters. People want to watch characters.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, that's the thing, right? That like, a lot of people a lot of filmmakers that are just starting out, like, they're always focusing on like the coolest, latest equipment, right? They're always focusing on the latest, greatest editing software and whatnot. And like, I mean, that's cool. Like we all, to a certain extent, especially now being 2022, right? And like everything's completely digital. We're all a bit of some sort of a tech friendly, tech savvy in that way, right? But the whole thing is that does not do anything at all for the person watching the video, right? So if you're so for example, like this is playing all over some trains, billboards, stuff in town, right? Like anyone shopping, in order to grab their attention, they don't care. Like you could have shot this on an iPhone and it grabs their attention, and then it did the purpose of what the advertisement is supposed to do, right? Yeah. Same thing for movies, whatnot, right? But I think that's something that's really, really important, is for everyone to understand your story, the feeling that it conveys, the messaging that you're speaking to people, and the way that those characters, like you said,
drive it forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like this one, like you see, and that's where like the art of directing comes in, is like you're not just oh, I want this, I want that. There's a logic to it. Like, why do they have to have headphones why are they sharing the same headphones, right? Because they're
experiencing it together.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, and it's also in that one single thing shows that they're experiencing together, they're enjoying it together, they're connected by the same thing in a symbolic way, and then it also talks about their income, right? Like it talks about who they are in the demographic we're talking about. Their environment tells that story too.
Right.
Like everything is something that helps push that story along. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. You can actually just see that in every single character.
Yeah.
So, cool. Okay. I think we have wrapped up the episode about Disney. That's that. Yeah.
Yeah. Next episode, we'll talk about
we don't
something
know.
else.
Yeah. All right.